I'm pleased you bent the knee to our queen. I would have advised it, had you asked. But have you ever considered learning how to lie every now and then? Just a bit?
I'm not going to swear an oath I can't uphold. Talk about my father if you want. Tell me that's the attitude that got him killed. But when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything. Then there are no more answers, only better and better lies. And lies won't help us in this fight.
That is
So the quote I'm going for is when there are, I have to paraphrase actually, but when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything. And I kind of feel like in life, or in society, I should say, there's this almost sort of understood and subliminal phenomenon where a lot of people, I think, feel very empowered when they see things cynically and in a negative light. I almost feel like a lot of people feel like growing up and maturing is understanding that honor and doing what's right is not always the best option. And I feel very much opposed to that concept. I think that maturing is realizing the exact opposite, that lying, falsehoods, wrongdoings obviously can advance you or others in the short term. But I think growing up and wisdom is understanding that in the long run, that will not be the case. So Jon Snow, I mean, if you know the show, his character is embodies that quote, or that quote embodies him, I should say, thoroughly. And obviously, I think it's pretty well laid out there. It's not too deep of a quote in the sense that there's a lot to unpack. I think it's pretty crystal clear. But yeah, I operate as somebody who tells the truth. I mean, you can, I guess, choose not to believe this, but every moment of every day, I don't feel like there's ever an appropriate time that I've experienced to lie or to withhold the truth, even. And maybe with a couple exceptions, but I wouldn't even necessarily say so for sure. And I think that this quote, like I said, is pretty clear, but I think it's very important to understand that while I think a lot of people would hear that and say, well, that might not necessarily be the case, I don't think it's naive to say that it is. And I think it frustrates me sometimes when people, I think, feel like they're, you know, ahead of the game if they understand that lying and manipulating people is going to get them ahead in life. And I think real true wisdom and maturity is understanding that that advancement is temporary, and in the long run, it's certainly not something that is going to benefit you on an individual level, and certainly not benefit those around you.
I right before I went to bed last night, I don't know where I saw this, but I saw a really interesting quote. And I think it was lies get up and runs around the world in the time that truth puts on his shoes.
I love that.
And I think it's true, right? It's very easy to lie and manipulate the truth and your wording, and that spreads and runs like wildfires, right? That goes so quickly, and it's so easy to do that. But the hard thing to do, and the steady thing to do, is to tell the truth. It's a very Kantian-esque idea, because he's always like, and at any point in time, you should always do the right thing, no matter what the situation is. And like one of his
Yeah.
universal things is telling the truth. And so it's I think it is. It's really important to remember that the consequences of you lying or not telling the truth may seem trivial in the moment, but in reality, you're starting an infectious disease that is going to have much greater consequences in the long term than it is in than you are gaining by lying in that single moment. And it could be an infectious disease in two senses. One, because for yourself, right? I think once you start lying and get in the habit of not telling the truth, then it becomes very easy in the future for you, anytime the truth becomes inconvenient, for you to
Right.
just throw it away, right?
A
And
hundred-
so it almost like the lie infects you. But at the same time, I think from a societal point of view, one person's lie, as we said, runs around the world by the time truth puts on his shoes. Like your you may not think that your lie has an impact on other people because you're just one person, but I think it really does. When other people start doing wrongs, it really influences uh, the the willingness of others to do the same wrong.
Mm.
Whereas if you take the high road and stick to the truths, I think you're setting a much better example for yourself and for others in society.
100%. And not just that. I mean, you dig yourself a deeper and deeper hole, and it's in many cases it's hard to go back on a lie, right? You almost have to start believing it yourself, and build upon it, right? If you tell a lie that starts to color the future, it's really hard to reverse that. And I always say it's really really difficult to get yourself into trouble if you're always telling the truth. I mean, 90%, I think, of issues at a minimum arise from dishonesty. And I think this is very important. And this is something that I live by 100%. If you believe that you're a fully moral and ethical person, which I would hope and think that most people do, and that certainly isn't necessarily the case, but I would hope that for as many people as possible it is. If you believe that about yourself, then you should never say something that you don't believe.
Yeah.
Because if you do, that's the only way you're going to say something that is immoral, according to you. And you might be wrong, right? You can make a mistake, but I would like to think that there are people around you that can help you and help you correct that and teach you, right? But for example, I believe that everything that I believe is right and moral. And it's probably the case that it's not, although maybe not. I think it may potentially might be because I'm just that guy. But if I believe, why would I ever say something that I don't think is true? If that makes sense. And I think that's a very and again, like I said, this frustrates me. Like I think a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but in reality, this isn't the case. But I think real maturity is understanding that it is. It just doesn't necessarily feel that way immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
And
just
this is
to
actually a fantastic segue. If you excuse me for a moment, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. To my third quote on this list. So we'll get there when we get there.
well,
But
it's an even
sorry,
better
pardon me.
segue to my number 4 on this list.
Well,
Um,
that is absolutely sublime.
and I don't think I need an introduction here. You will find out why. This is a
Okay.
quote from the one and only Seinfeld.
Oh, fantastic.
Um, and I think I don't need to tell you which quote it is here or any context.
So, George, how do I beat this lie detector?
I'm sorry, Jerry, I can't help you.
Come on, you got the gift. You're the only one that can help me.
Jerry, I can't. It's like saying to Pavarotti, teach me to sing like you.
All right, well, I gotta go take this test. I can't believe I'm doing this.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
That
All
wasn't
right.
even segue than I even thought. Wow. Okay. What you
Yeah,
got?
I was looking at my list, uh, and in the middle of a talk, and I was like, oh shit, like this is the perfect segue.
Yeah, I really hope
Um,
this one's next, right?
uh, so just a little bit of context. Jerry, so there's George and Jerry. George is the one who's the bald guy. Jerry's not. Jerry's girlfriend works at the police station and has caught him in a lie, and she's making him take the lie detector test to the polygraph test to prove that he's lying. And George has beaten this polygraph test. He's like done it in the past, and so Jerry's like, "Please, please, please, tell me your secret. How do you do this?" Um, and George's like, "Oh, I can't do it. I can't help you. I can't help you. It's it's a God given gift. I can't I can't teach you." And then at the end, he delivers like a great line. I just love this. It's not a lie if you believe it. Um, okay, this is going to be completely contrarian to everything I just said in the previous uh, about your number five, but I think it's often like, especially in today's world, when there's so much going around and there's so much information, and oftentimes like you could go to one news outlet and uh, get a story, and then you could go to another news outlet and the same story could be twisted in a completely different way, so that you could get a completely different set of facts from um, one outlet to the next. And you know I don't think it's the truth, but I'm not so certain that it is a lie, because if you don't know, okay, if you there's one case, right? If you don't know the other side, or don't know um other things about a certain case, and you're just saying based on the information that you have, you could be telling a falsehood, but I don't know if that necessarily means it's a lie. Now,
Right.
on the other hand, and I think this is what this quote gets to more, is if you somehow manipulate your mind to just like subconsciously get rid of certain facts and certain truths, um, it's almost like you're operating as if you never had that information. And
Right.
then, so in some sense, like, is that really a lie? Or can you manipulate your psychological state so that you purposely erase certain information from your brain, uh, and convince yourself that what you're saying is true, um, on a psychological level, and then when you say that falsehood, I'm not certain that that is the same thing as telling an outward lie when you actively know and believe something, but purposely say the opposite. And so I think it is like, it does this quote. It's, first of all, it's very funny, and for those of you who know Seinfeld, it's perfectly in line with the character George Costanza. Um, but it also has some philosophical underpinnings about what is a lie, and uh, what is not, and what it means to tell the truth. Because some things are like subjective, right? For example, saying your favorite ice cream flavor or your favorite color, right? There is no objective truth necessarily out there that somebody can say, well, actually, no, I know you're saying it's blue, but it's pink, because there is no way for anybody to objectively figure out that information. So to me, it does say something very interesting about uh, the ability for you to turn objectivity into subjectivity. And I think that's really what this quote gets at, is turning the objective into the subjective in your mind.
Yeah, I think what's interesting. Well, first of all, I think we all hear that, and we hear it as comedy because, and it is, it's very funny. But I think we hear it as such because it's not true. But I don't think that's the case. I think what George says is actually true. The problem is we're not really in control of what we believe. And I would love to have this debate with you sometimes if you disagree. I don't know if you do, but I always like to think, and I've had this argument and debate many, many times. I don't think we're in control of what we believe at the core. We are in control of what we do with that information and the choices that we make, what we say, what we do. But the answer to George's point is not that that's incorrect. The answer is we don't really get to decide whether or not we believe it. If Jerry did lie, he knows that. And he can potentially manipulate his mind and inauthentically feel otherwise. But at the core, I don't think we as humans are in control of what we believe. And, obviously there's a lot of semantics that go along with that. And we could, obviously debate them at another time. But I think what George is saying is factually correct. So I like that quote. It's, first of all, Seinfeld. I probably could have pulled 10 quotes out of Seinfeld.
Oh yeah,
but
100%.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And
I think it's hilarious how. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead. You're saying it's hilarious that.
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious how fitting it was after my number 5.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, that was fate doing a number on this segment.